Thank you for listening to Mobility Redefined, brought to you by Modaxo. For more insights and information, please visit mobilityredefined.com. That is mobilityredefined.com. Welcome to the Mobility Redefined podcast, where we explore latest developments in mobility sector. I am your host, Dr. Kaan Yildizgoz, and today I am very pleased to have Marta Serrano Balbuena, Secretary General of Land Transport in Spain's Ministry of Transport and Sustainable Mobility. Marta has had an outstanding career in public transport, leading initiatives to enhance sustainable mobility and gender equity in Spain. Today, together with her, we will be exploring topics such as active mobility, decarbonization, future of rail in Spain, and as well how the climate events are affecting transport sector. Welcome, Marta.
Hi, Kaan. How are you?
I am very fine.
It's for me to be here with you. Very
Thank you,
much
Marta,
for inviting me.
It's really great to see you and hosting you at this podcast. And Marta, you have had a distinguished career in transport. We work also together in many years. And then you were leading a municipal transport company in the past, and now you have a current role as Secretary General of Land Transport. Could you give us a brief of your career journey and what brought you to where you are today?
Well, I studied civil engineer, you may know. At first, I specialized in territory, not just transport, but more wide sector like territory planning and so on. But then when I started to work in consultancy, because I started working in consultancy, I discovered, I think is the word, discover transport, and then I discovered public transportation. And I was really engaged with the possibilities to help people to have more equal and more sustainable environment in cities. And I really fell in love with public transportation like 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I had the opportunity to work at INT Madrid, the public bus company in the city of Madrid as a director. I was the first female there as well. And I was there like 4 years. And then the government of the city of Valencia offered me to join the company as the CEO. And I accepted. And it was a really challenge for me because it was a difficult moment for all the companies, I think, in the world, because it was a pandemic of COVID-19. And every company, I think, public transportation was broke. So for me, it was a challenge because the accounts were really difficult to maintain. After that, when the government changed in Valencia City, I was thinking about my future. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. For me, it was clear that I wanted to continue working in public transport or in transport in general, because I really think a deep connection with the sector and with my work. And it's really a great sector to work, great area to work. And for me, helping people is the most important topic for my professional life. So when the current Minister of Transport in Spain offered me to work as General Secretary of Land Transportation, that was an opportunity because the minister has a completely different point of view of how to manage the ministry here in Spain. Because before I joined the team, before the ministry was nominated as minister, the area I manage today was split in two different areas: the infrastructure on one side and the transport on the other side. And the ministry decided to join both of them with the point of view that the infrastructure should answer the needs of transport sector, for transport system, not only be the infrastructure and then came the services. So for me, this was a great opportunity to put into the service my previous knowledge about public transportation, about transport, and in the area of the infrastructure as well. It's a great challenge for me right now. So I'm really happy in this work.
Great, Marta. You see what kind of excellent job you are doing. And I want to also thank you because we are doing this podcast recording in a time that you were very busy. You were so busy together with your colleagues, the Minister of Transport, especially after these recent floods in Spain. Yeah. And I would like to express my deepest sympathies to everyone in Spain who has been affected by the floods. I mean, These tragic events have not only impacted communities, but also caused significant disruptions to the transport infrastructure. We see this all around the world. Could you share the extent of the impact on Spain's transport systems and how the ministry has been working to overcome these challenges in the recovery efforts?
We have had problems mostly in a few roads. In general, the transport system in Spain has not suffered a lot with the flows. We have problems with different bridges in different points of the Valencia province for roads. And then we have most important problems in the railway system, because the railway system, the Cercanías is the name, is the railway system in the area, in the metropolitan area of Valencia, and the rails there were most affected for the flow. But it was a matter more of dirtiness, of a lot of water in the railways than a problem of structures or of capacity. We have some problems in infrastructure, but we have cleaned every infrastructure. We are still cleaning the railways infrastructures. But I think one of the main points we can learn from that is that the transport system has been really, really resilient in this event, in this catastrophic and devastating event in Spain, because we are now responding with a lot of funding, with a lot of people working there. We have more than 300 people working there in infrastructures to recover them as soon as possible. Last week, we could reopen again the high-speed railway system in Valencia, because we had problems in two tunnels. One of them was completely flow, and the other one was had problem with the structure, but we could repair both tunnels in just 2 weeks, which is pretty fast. And in one of the main roads, A7 highway in Valencia, one of the bridge collapsed, so we need to build in just 2 weeks as well a bypass to start right now, recover the bridge, but the functionality has been recovered. And for the nearby railway system, I think the most important action we have taken is recover the service in infrastructure, which was clean, which was untouched at the end. And then we managed to build a bus system to do the same service of trains. And we have more than 100 buses that are working right now to help people to go work or to go to hospitals or to schools or whenever they need to do. And I think we have reacted really fast. And that's the most important thing we can learn for that.
I think it's great to hear how you're agile in responding to this, Marta, and how public transport is essential for the recovery of these regions. And according to the recent studies, what we see is that the number of extreme weather events in Europe have increased around 60% over the last 3 decades. And if you think from the perspective of these events, what recommendations would you give to the other cities and regions looking to enhance their resilience against such extreme climate events? How can transport systems be better prepared for the challenges posed by a changing climate?
Well, for the transport system, I think we need to recheck our protocols, because these events will be more usual or more common in the future years. So I think we are not yet, I don't know if the word is prepared, but we need to be conscientious. Conscientious is the word in English. So we need to recheck our protocols with this new data that the scientists have been telling us for years now, that these events are becoming more and more common. So we need to recheck that, because as we have seen in Valencia, the meteorological advice were there, the hydrological advice were there. So we need to respond sooner and better. That is essential to save lives. For example, we stopped the railway service at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So the trains weren't doing services when the most important flood came. And this is really, really important, because we save a lot of lives. And that is the point of that, because after that, we can recover. And I think we need to learn to be faster and to adapt faster and quicker to this kind of event and to the distraction. Because For me, the most important topic of that is that we cannot predict the destruction that came after this event. We can predict with 1 week or a few days the magnitude of the storm or the flood, but not the magnitude of the disaster, of the destruction there. So we need to be more proactive, quicker, faster in the areas, and learn to think outside the box. I know this recommendation is like very common. Think outside the box, no, but if we are not having the bridge in place in 2 weeks, in 1 month, I don't know, what can we do? So we did a bypass in the highway, or we are not serving people with trains because the railway system is dirty. We need to rebuild them. So we need to put a lot of buses, and we need to study the most efficient way for public transport to respond to the needs of the citizens, and stop thinking about cars, about where are going to drive people, because we are not in this scenario in Spain. The numbers talks about 100,000 cars lost in this flood. That is a lot of cars, so we need a lot of public transport right now because we don't have rail system or rail services. But after that, when we recover the system and the infrastructure in the next few weeks, because I hope we will have the railway system on again before Christmas, but we need to rethink the whole scenario. A lot of cars were lost. What should we do there? Probably we need to think in a public transport system more bigger or greater than it was to substitute this trips by car, because we have known for a lot of years that cars are one of the main problems regarding climate change, climate crisis. So that is my advice, at least, that we need to rethink and use this kind of strategies to rethink our systems.
I think it's very good because the name of our podcast is Redefining Mobility. And while we are redefining mobility, we should certainly consider the impact that may come from such kind of climate events. And then you are underlining it very well. And what I can tell is that I always say public transport is like lifeblood of modern economies, connecting people, connecting businesses, connecting opportunities. Yeah. And you mentioned particularly also on the rail. And Spain is known for having the second largest high-speed rail network in the world. It's very impressive. Could you share what plans are in place for the further development of this high-speed railway network and how these projects are being funded? Because it's a major challenge all around the world nowadays to allocate the right funding. And I know that the ministry, you are thinking a lot on this point as well.
For high-speed railway, we have a lot done already. But
congratulations, Marta.
Thank you. You know, our rail infrastructure was really old. It has been funded for 50, 60 years when the first project of high-speed railway came to the government in the late 80s. And then the people decide to change the entire system, and they try to modernize the railway system in Spain, but with high-speed trains and not just the normal ones. And right now we have almost every corridor done, but we need to invest in 2 corridors, and we are working with European Union for that. The Mediterranean corridor, the corridor which goes parallel to the Mediterranean Sea from Andalusia, going to Murcia, Levante, Catalonia, and then France.
It will be very good for your tourism as well, huh?
Yeah, it will be. We are almost there because we have a lot of projects going on, a lot of building going on, in fact, for the Mediterranean corridor. We are not there because we need to think in freight transport as well, not just passengers, because we always think in passengers, but for us, change the railway infrastructure for freight. It's really important too, because we have a really low quality of freight transport in railway. You know, it's just 4% when the average in Europe is 10, 12. So we are really far away for that quote in Europe. And so we need to reinvest in this corridor. First one is the Mediterranean corridor. And the other one is the Atlantic corridor, the one which is parallel and came from Portugal and in the north of Spain mostly. And that's our two main projects right now regarding high-speed rail. Regarding funding, we are now using and we are working a lot. We have a lot of building areas right now in Spain regarding railways. Thanks to the European funding after COVID, we had the possibility to advance the infrastructure thanks to this funding. So we are right now building a lot thanks to the European fund, the Next Generation funding. It's not that the official name, but Next Generation funding. And we hope it will be more resilient and more ambitious as well for us when these funds ended in a few years. But for the moment, that is our way of funding mostly.
That's great. That's great. I mean, it's very good to see how the high-speed railway network is developing in Spain and also in general in Europe. 1.5 years ago, I was traveling from Brussels to Barcelona together with my colleagues, and then we all traveled with a train all the way. So it was a great experience. And then it's good to see as well how it's getting better and better day by day. And we talk about rail, and I talk about a little bit Barcelona, that I travel from Brussels. And then Barcelona is known as well in terms of also how it's leading the electric buses in Europe. And then we discussed with you in the past about decarbonization and electric mobility. And I want to ask you also, what are the key steps in Spain now you are taking to decarbonize public transport? And how is the transition to the electric mobility being supported by the government policies, especially from the perspective of the buses or the taxis or the cars? Because we know that 80% of the public transport is by buses, still all over the world.
That's it. For me, it will be different for buses than for cars or for vehicles, because for vehicles, it will be easier, I think. But in Spain, we need a denser network of recharge stations, because we don't have a lot. In Spain, we have a problem that we have a lot of space empty or almost empty. So we don't have the power there to have a charging station in place, but we need to fulfill the requirement of the European Union. We have a charging station every 60 kilometers, I think. And we are working on that because we need to promote the electrification, the decarbonization of cars. The people need to have the security, or they can charge the vehicle in the middle of Spain. And we are right now with plan to densify or changing a station in rural areas, especially because the urban areas are not the problems. We have a lot of charging stations in urban areas, but in the rural ones, it's more difficult. And for public transport, for me, I don't know what's the future for public transport in terms of decarbonization. For me, it's clear that right now, public transport, if you use public transport for every people and kilometers traveled by public transport, the pollution is way less than for every people and kilometer traveled by car. So having that in mind, because I think we tend to compare decarbonization in buses, in public transport, and decarbonization in cars as the same priority. And I don't think so. But of course, I think we have to decarbonize public transportation as well, buses especially. And for buses, I can see that the future will be a mix of technologies, not just electric vehicles, but hydrogen ones as well. You spoke about TMB in Barcelona. They are trying both technologies. And I think in terms of autonomy, in terms of capacity, hydrogen will have better results than electric vehicles, especially for long-haul travels, because you cannot stop a bus full of people between, Spain and Germany. You cannot stop the bus for 4-5 hours, or you will have a really angry customer then. No? So for me, it's the future for buses and the future for trucks as well will be hydrogen more than electric buses. And in Spain, we have a couple of projects about green hydrogen. The technology is not there yet. So for urban transport, we need to test both technologies and to see how that reacts. But for urban transport, electric vehicles works fine because you go to the depot at night and you charge the buses and there's no problem. My main problem with us is the know-how services and the trucks. And I don't think we will have so different kind of vehicles for urban. It's a minority in the market if you compare sales with trucks and other kind of buses or other bigger buses. So we'll see.
It's great that you were highlighting the hydrogen power transportation. So that's great to hear the ambition of Spain on this one and your objectives. And one point that we are also discussing with the different policymakers while we talk about decarbonization is the prioritizing active mobility. And I know that you also do a lot of work about this. And can you share with us how is Spain prioritizing active mobility, bicycles, pedestrian spaces, and so on, Marta?
For me, active mobility is the key for reduce emissions in the future. We need to walk more and cycle more, or at least we need to walk and cycle as much as we can. You know, right now we have a law in Spain about low emission zones, and we are trying to promote less pollutant vehicles, but as well more pedestrian areas, especially in the city center, but not only that, because I think almost every city center is already a pedestrian area. We need to expand that to other neighborhoods in the cities and not just in the city center. And we are working for that. We are working as well for bikes. We have right now announced a law for next year to promote bicycles in cities and to fund people to want to buy a bicycle, especially an electric bicycle. And on the other hand, we will have funds for cities as well to promote public bike system in the city. So it's not just a matter of individualization, but a public transport system as well, a public transport service as well. And we are promoting that with money, which is always important. And I think with the force of the minister, because we have changed the name of the minister right now, the minister for the first time is called of sustainable mobility. You know, that was almost impossible a few years ago. So we are convinced that the change should be multimodal, not only to decarbonize. You know, we need to change the ecosystem in public transport.
I think it's a good message also to change the name of the ministry. It makes me remember some years ago, there was one of the biggest public transport operators in the world. They were changing the title of their CEO, not using chief executive officer, but chief experience officer. This is what they were changing, the focus on their commitment into the passenger experience. Yeah. And Marta, one point before we close, I would like to discuss with you is certainly about promoting the gender equity in mobility. You co-founded Women in Motion Spain, and you have been a leading voice in promoting gender equity in transport. How can public transport become more inclusive, and what initiatives are currently being implemented in Spain to support gender inclusion?
I think we need to take a look at the data. And in terms of workers of the public transport sector, of the transport sector in general, but for public transport as well, women are really underrepresented. We are really underrepresented in the sector. We are not working here. And I think it's a cultural problem in one hand, because we don't have a reference. We don't have the idea that little girls can work in the sector. Because if you watch cartoons, sometimes you can see the roles still there. So for kids, it's really difficult to dream about the public transport sector as an option for them, for the girls especially. And we need to promote the presence of women. We need to include more women, or to facilitate in the selection process that women wanted to go with us and wanted to work. Drivers, it's not only for drivers, because the problem is in almost every area in the companies, but we need to attract women. And we need to have more equitative, I don't know if it's the word, environment in the companies, because, you know, we are still seen a lot of roundtables, a lot of events about public transport, which are full of men, and that's okay because they have a lot of expertise. But we need women there as well. We need to have this reference as well. And we need to be more, because if not, it's always the same woman in the room, and that cannot be. We need more women. On the other hand, that's for work, and I can talk about that a lot to, that. But for work, that is the most important topic, cultural aspects in the society, and that is a work for the whole society, not just for the company. And then for the companies trying to have more women in the workplace is the second one. There is a lot of initiative, a lot of strategies to fulfill this objective for companies. But on the other hand, we know, and every study says the same, that women are the users of the public transport system. So if we don't consider women needs when we plan our transport services, we are not doing it well, and that's really difficult to say to someone who has worked in the public transport system for a lot of years, because it's, okay, I'm doing things wrong. No, and that's always a difficult position to say. The thing is, you can do it better because you are fulfilling the needs for a lot of people, but not for all. And then you need to take into account, to consider the woman needs. And we know that as a role as keepers, not gatekeepers in home, we have different needs in terms of trips, in terms of times of travel. So we need to study the woman needs and how women move, and then implement services to fulfill this need for women as well, and not just because we already know that we are missing this point,
I fully agree, Marta, on this. I was seeing some statistics from different countries. It was showing that more than 60% of the users globally are women passengers. And there were some studies I was reading in the past that even nearly 80% of the women feel unsafe in transit spaces, particularly at night. So how we can design a better experience for all our passengers.
Well, safety is another topic, another big topic, especially at night. And this is a social and cultural problem, not just for public transportation. Problem of safety is in the public space in general. And we need to address the problem by thinking about infrastructure as well. Because if we don't have gender-inclusive infrastructure better, we are not taking into account things like we cannot have dark space, dark corners, or just a bus stop in the middle of nowhere with no pavement access to the bus stop. We need to take that kind of thing into account. We in the ministry right now, we are about to present a recommendation, a guide for gender-inclusive infrastructure for land transport only. But taking into account this kind of thing, how should we design pedestrian tunnels in cities? How should we design resting areas in highways for women to be safer or to feel safer? Because there's two different things.
Perfect.
And feel safe, But we need in both.
I fully agree. I can say that the freedom to move safely cannot depend on your gender.
Of course not. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you, Marta. Marta, thank you for sharing your experiences and insights with us. It was a great discussion. Before we close, is there anything else you would like to highlight regarding Spain's plans for sustainable transport?
No, I think I have talked about that a lot. But I want to say just that we are really, really, really in the way of promote public transportation, because it's the future for all us. It's the country we let to our children right now, and we need to have more and better public transport system.
It has been wonderful having you on the podcast, Marta. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to our listeners for tuning into this episode of Mobility Redefined.
Thank you very much, Dan, and thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Mobility Redefined, brought to you by Modaxo. For more insights, visit our website at mobilityredefined.com or follow us on LinkedIn. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app to stay updated with our latest episodes. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed the conversation.